Hey, welcome back everybody. Michael Head Grower. So it's been a little bit of a delay getting the next video up. Been super busy trying to get everything trimmed and processed into jars, getting the shed here cleaned up, and all in between that, of course, getting ready for the holidays and working, of course. So my apologies, but for now I will say that the harvest went very well. Definitely exceeded my expectations as far as yield goes, but I will definitely get into that at a later date. But I will say I was pretty much expecting a minimum of about 2.5 ounces per plant, and all in all ended up closer to, well, I should say between 3 and 4 ounces per plant, depending on strain. But anyways, this video here is basically just dedicated to going over the Growroom design. Today I'm going to be moving all the new plants from the veg space to the room here, and while the room was basically empty, just wanted to kind of go over the room design and basically how I've got things set up. So in case you're just now joining us, this is a 4,000 watt medical marijuana grow room, which, just to reiterate, got our permits over here, 15 plants per recommendation, and we've got, along with our 4,000 watts, it does entail all digital ballasts, metal halide, high pressure sodium switchable, which I've just added, or just changed out the bulbs back to the metal halides, which you can see now we've got the white balance off and get to enjoy some semi-clear video quality. But anyways, to cool those lights, what you're seeing right in front of me here is basically just what we call in the HVAC industry a plenum, essentially, and that's connected directly to outside with a filter in the bottom, basically to make sure that we're keeping bugs and shit out of our hoods. And then off of that we come with an 8-inch tap to an 8-inch Vortex style fan. Then that duct runs all the way over to the first hood, obviously connected to the second hood, loops around over to the third hood, to the fourth hood, and then eventually terminates back outside. And I know what you're thinking, that's probably not enough airflow for 4,000 watts of light, but believe it or not, it actually works quite well. At some point in time I'll add another Vortex fan. I've got another 8-inch value line that is kind of messed up, which has to get warranted, but you know, if I could, I would have 2 8-inch fans, but it works actually just fine when we're pulling outdoor air, aside from when we're in the dead heat of the summer. But then we've also got another 8-inch Vortex fan here, which ideally was designed to have a carbon scrubber on it just to recirculate the air in the room, and we've got that off of a 866Y into 2 6-inch ducts, which then reduces down to 4-inch to increase the velocity with your French drain style of ducts running down the center of the grow room, which also works very well to recirculate the air. And obviously we've also got a couple of box fans moving air around. I did order some wall mounts a few months back, but the order, I don't know exactly what happened with the order. I don't know if the place I ordered them from didn't have them in stock or something, but the order got actually canceled, or I should say postponed, and I just ended up canceling the order. But anyways, as far as our lighting goes, I know you know, most people know that when you have, you know, around 4,000 watts of light, you obviously have to take special precautions. Obviously you can't just plug them directly into the wall. And these lights I do run off of 240 volts, and what I did was run a 240 volt circuit down from the house, dug it into a trench and brought in this sub panel here, and then actually I designed my own lighting controller rather than buying a pre-made lighting controller for a couple $100, because it's actually very easy to do. And myself being an electrician slash HVAC technician, obviously I had the know-how and the materials to do so. And the way that we went about that was we took a 24 volt style timer here, which is then integrated into a heavy duty relay, which in the HVAC world is called a contactor. Main power comes in to that contactor, and which is controlled, switched on and off by the 24 volt timer. Now, to run a 24 volt timer, you obviously need a transformer, which is what you're seeing here. And I'm not going to get into this control panel too much, just because it'll just be boring for anybody who knows nothing about controls and whatnot. But basically, that 24 volt timer is what switches the lights on and off through that heavy duty relay. And then we've got this other wire comes off the top of that heavy duty relay up to this junction box, and then this junction box is where the each 1000 watt ballast is tied into. So as soon as we get the call from this timer to turn the lights on, it energizes that contactor, closes the contact, sends power to our circuit, and ultimately powers our lights. So that's the way that that works. And I highly recommend doing something similar if you have you know, a little bit of electrical know-how, because building that contraption probably only cost me a few dollars and really doesn't take very long to do, and save you some money in the long run, which I'm not the cheapest grower by any means. I mean, I will definitely spend the money needed to get the job done right, but if there's something that I can build, I will absolutely do so. Which is why, you know, I will get into this controller here a little bit. And what this actually does, this is also an environmental controller. See, we've got this thermostat here, which thermostat is obviously powered by our 24 volt transformer, but we've got our cooling and our heating actually hooked up to a couple of relays which energize these outlets that you see here. And basically, we get a call for cooling, energizes one outlet. We get a call for heating, and energizes another outlet. The cooling is actually hooked up to this fan here, and basically the way it's designed is that if it kind of works the opposite way, to where it kind of has its most benefit during the winter, because when it's very cold outside, if I were to just keep this fan running continuously, the room will actually be very cold. It'll pretty much linger around 60 to 64 degrees, which is a little, actually much cooler than we would like it to be. So the way it actually works is I can set my cooling temperature to the temperature that I would like the room to be. So for instance, say 72 degrees, just for sake of example. Now, if, let's say for instance that the circulation fan for the hoods is off, lights are cooking the room up to 72 degrees, well, as soon as that thermostat senses that the room is getting above 72 degrees, it then obviously kicks on our cooling outlet, which then energizes our fan, cools down the hoods, and maintains our temperature at 72 degrees. And then the heating side of it is obviously just for lights off, and I've got one of those oil-filled radiator heaters here hooked up to that to accurately maintain our off-cycle temperature. And you see I've also got this speed controller here, which speed controller is tied into our exhaust fan for our hoods. And what I can actually do is lower the speed of that fan and actually run the fan more continuously for longer cycles rather than a continuous on and off, because it's the on and off which wears out your fans. And then of course you can actually end up with hot spots from the lights if they're not kind of semi-continuously cool. So that's one thing that I do during these colder months. Now during the hotter months, this fan pretty much runs continuously, and then our main cooling is provided by this 12,000 BTU dual hose model portable air conditioner. And with that portable air conditioner and dehumidifier here, dehumidifier puts off a fair amount of heat, and it's able to keep up pretty well for the most part. But in the dead heat of the summer, with the dehumidifier going, it does actually end up getting just a little bit warmer in here than I'd like it to be, you know, around 82, 83 degrees. somewhere in the neck of the woods, and which, you know, is fine for a lot of growers, but me personally, you know, if I can keep my temps down around 75, 77, that's much more preferred. I am going to sometime get a different source of cooling in here, and it's going to be something that's, you know, more of a split system design, most likely a mini split, and then we'll be able to maintain whatever temperature we'd like no matter how hot it is outside, and then we won't be sacrificing you know, our CO2, because this dual hose model here, it does a very good job of not exhausting air in the room, but it still does exhaust some air in the room, which if you have a single hose portable air conditioner, pretty much say goodbye to running CO2, because anytime that your cooling is going to be running, it's going to be continuously exhausting the air in the room, which I'm not going to get into the whole CO2 thing a whole lot. If you do want more information on how I run CO2, I've got a video made completely devoted to it. But I will say, the way that I run this room is sealed, and by sealed I don't mean 100% airtight sealed, but by that I mean there is no exhaust, and we just have our CO2 hooked up to our Sentinel PPM4 controller and constantly maintain a adequate level of CO2 in the room, which takes away the need of bringing in a large amount of fresh air. With that also being said, when you want to run a room sealed in such a way, what you need to do is make sure that your hoods are all sealed up for the most part. These Sunlight Supply Magnum XXL reflectors are actually pretty well sealed. They're gasketed very well, but there is some leakage to them, so normally you'll see that I've got blue painter's tape all on the seams of these hoods, as to not bring in a continuous supply of outdoor air so that we can maintain our CO2 parts per million. So that's pretty much the way that that works. This grow room that I've got here, I did design and build with one sole purpose. I started out with a bare piece of ground, built the platform that you see us standing on right now, and yeah, I basically bought a metal shed. I can't remember the brand name of it, but it's a 10 by 15 shed. It has actually a very sturdy design. It was very affordable. It was actually only about $400 to $500, I believe. Had I, you know, had to do it all over again, I probably would have done it a little bit different, because I do have some minor water concerns. When it's raining really hard, I do get a little bit of water coming in through the door, but I've actually got a fix for that, which I'm going to take care of sometime here pretty soon. Now, as far as our watering goes, the way that I go about that is I've got this 32-gallon Rubbermaid trash can that I use for a reservoir, continuously aerating with a air pump, of course, and I've got a pump down in the bottom of that reservoir which pumps water up and overhead here up into this basically what I would call an upper reservoir, and this basically just provides a gravity feed down to this 3/4 line, which then goes down and hooks up to this series of 1/2-inch lines with valves on them. And this isn't an automated system by any means. It definitely is sort of a precursor to the automated system that I plan on designing sometime down the road, but basically what this does is just kind of gives me a better ease of hand watering when this room is full of plants, which no matter which way you look at it, it's a pain in the ass, of course, because obviously there is some you know, space restrictions in here, but it does work pretty good for what it is. Let's see, so I think the only other thing that I'm probably not exactly covering on the room's design is, well, we've got our dehumidifier here. This is a 70-pint dehumidifier, which pretty much maintains humidity at basically, you know, whatever relative humidity I would like it to be, which, you know, during flower, I like to keep it around, you know, 40 to 50%. It works quite well. And the dehumidifier isn't tied into the control panel over there. I do plan on getting a humidity sensor and also integrating that into my homemade controller, but until now it just works off of the built-in controller and the dehumidifier, and that works just fine. It is powered off of a separate 120 volt circuit, which also comes into the shed, and that same circuit obviously powers the air conditioner, the fans, so on and so forth. At some point in time I am going to run a completely separate circuit, because the circuit that I've used right now for the 120 volts was actually existing to the house because of a water feature pump that's pretty close to the shed. But someday I am going to run a separate 60 amp circuit strictly for our 110 volt components, you know, such as the fans and dehumidifier and air conditioner, because I know that we are very close to overloading that circuit when everything is running, which I highly do not recommend to do. So one thing that's very important to keep in mind is when you're setting up a grow room, all your electrical needs to be, you know, pretty much up to snuff, and by that, you know, up to code. So your wire size needs to be correct, your circuitry amperage needs to be correct. So you need to know your, you need to know your amperage, your watts, things of that nature, which if anybody has any questions regarding any electrical, please let me know. When it comes to setting up, you know, lighting, air conditioning, anything of that nature, I can definitely be of some help, as it's basically what I do for a living. So that's basically what we've got going on here. I guess another thing that I should mention is the shed. I did insulate with this reflective bubble wrap like material. The brand name is called Reflectix. I'd highly recommend it. It's very easy to clean. It has a R factor of 4 when it's a single layer, and a double layer with airspace is an R factor of 6, which for how thin this stuff is, I think it'd be pretty hard for me to get an actual view of how thick it is, but I'd say it's maybe a 1/4 inch thick at the most, and an R factor of 4, that's pretty damn good. Sometime I would like to double insulate it, lay down another layer of insulation, which right now would be a really good time to do so, but then again, it's not a huge concern, and just the single layer works pretty well, and it's really, you know, mostly for reflectivity. And, you know, as far as actual insulating goes of the shed, you know, I would like it to be better insulated, but then again, you know, I kind of wish I'd just double wrapped it before I had all this, you know, all this equipment in here. But either way, it works pretty good as far as reflectivity goes, and as far as the insulation goes, works not too bad. So I think that's about it as far as our room design goes. We do have a separate veg space going right now, which I'll touch that at another time, but I am going to be setting up an entirely separate veg room, so then that way we'll have a more perpetual cycle going on, rather than, you know, starting a whole run of new plants as soon as we're finishing the previous run of plants. So eventually, in fact, on our next run, we will be right on track with that. Our next run is featuring, I've got 23 Crazy Train cuttings, as well as some seeds that I started of Plushberry and Jack the Ripper. I've already identified 3 Jack the Ripper females, 2 Jack the Ripper males, which I've already culled, 2 Plushberry females, and 1 Plushberry male. So I've got 2 more Plushberries that need to show their sex, and then it looks like, you know, at a minimum we'll have 5 seed plants from seed, in which we'll be able to select our phenotypes from Jack the Ripper and Plushberries. So our next run is going to be completely TGA. I was very impressed with the 1 Crazy Train plant that I had last round, and yeah, super stoked to get that going. And pretty much as soon as I get done with this video here, I'm going to be bringing those plants down, so we'll have our next run started, and expect an update on that run probably within the next few days, and we'll get some definitely get some bud shots of all the strains from the previous garden, which, just to mention, in case anybody's forgot or you're just now joining us, we had one Crazy Train plant, one LA Kush plant, which is a OG Kush style of genetics basically, as well as one blue cheese plant, which was very impressive. And then the bulk of our grow was 15 purple diesels and 15 white Russians. Purple diesels are very, very, very impressive. Super stoked on the purple diesels. And then the white Russians, I'm also pretty stoked on those too. You know, it's I wouldn't say it's anything that's especially unique by any means. I will definitely keep it in the garden as you know, it was a very, very high yielder, very frosty, got a very nice aroma to it. But I would say that purple diesel was definitely the gem when it, you know, when it comes to the bulk of the garden. But either way, we'll be getting some bud shots of those, definitely. I'm not going to leave that in the dust, as well as I'm going to make a video, a how-to strictly devoted to drying and curing, as I've got all of those strains curing right now. I've got a really cool way and foolproof way of curing that if followed to the T, you will have a perfect cure every time. So look for that video, as well as our update on our first run, as we'll be introducing our 100% TGA run. So until then, I appreciate the patience that anybody had, you know, waiting for the next video update. Appreciate all the subscribers, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to let me know. So until then, we will see you next time. Peace.